Hey, it's Four with Playboy.
And my Playboys Bunny.
Welcome to our podcast where we discuss pickup, game, relationships, and
sex.
And today what we're going to talk about is the average Joe's relationship to game.
Yeah.
You know, and we always use alpha and beta.
Yeah.
And sometimes just saying beta over and over. But when we say average Joe, let's say in the whole of the sexual marketplace, 5% are alpha and game. It's a very small.
Truly.
It's tiny.
A lot more think they are.
Yeah.
But truly.
That's a good point. 90% are very much average Joes.
Yeah.
It is the mass. It's when you look out across the subdivision, it's the guys going to work, fixing cars, mowing the lawns,
coaching soccer,
coming home, little overweight wife, couple kids go to school in the neighborhood, no private schools, just normal, everyday guys.
Normal dudes.
Exactly. And they're the backbone of the U.S.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. And that's where, people always go, well, how are they going to get married? They get married.
Yeah.
They live long lives, long, fulfilling lives.
They're relatively happy.
Yeah. And then you've got a very small percentage of guys that, don't have the social skills or they have a little bit of down, it doesn't work at all. But when we're talking about average Joes, and in this world, it used to be called an average frustrated chump. And that's where guys are they are truly frustrated.
Yeah.
And we can fix that.
Yeah, we can.
And
game fixes it.
Yeah. But most guys, they just want to go to work.
Yeah.
Bang their wife a couple times a month.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, get drunk or high on a daily basis. That's a very large part of.
I was going to say, I think they want to drink and get high more than they even want to have sex. With some of them.
Yeah, it's a daily, if not every other day occurrence. It's a daily pastime.
Yeah.
And pursue their hobbies, be it video games or hunting, fishing. It could be, working on engines.
Yeah. Whatever their hobbies are.
Yeah, but usually they have something.
Yeah.
Playing pool or bowling or, anything you see happening in the U.S. in the evenings.
Yeah.
Is basically a pastime.
And they think about it all day and talk about it all day with their buddies.
Yeah. Or any excuse or any type of social situation where they can drink and get high. That's the reality of it.
That's what adulting is hobbies that revolve around allowing you to drink without seeming like an alcoholic.
Yeah. And that is where most of them are at. And I think it it confuses guys that are in our little realm.
Yeah.
When we kind of bump up against them, they don't really understand. But sometimes they don't, if you expose them to what we know, they either don't believe you.
Yeah.
Or they become kind of aggressive.
Yes.
And somebody kind of explained it to me you're messing with their worldview. And my job is not to press our beliefs or what we know on other people.
No.
But when sometimes it leaks over or they're like, you're never with the same girl twice. You kind of say, hey, this is what we did. It messes with their worldview of what's possible.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear it. And that's cool. So you have to be careful. Even if they do ask you for advice on hey, my wife, isn't banging me or, I'm thinking about hitting on the secretary.
Yeah.
You have to be super careful about what advice you give. Because they don't have the background.
Because the average Joe doesn't have the mental capacity or the mental foundation to deal with that.
Or the experience, because, what were they saying? I saw another study come out just the other day where, the average guy had, 4 partners in a lifetime.
Oh, yeah,
And we've usually went with 7.
Yeah.
It's the number. And for a lot of us, we slept with 7 women, within months.
The first few months of having sex. Back when you were 15.
It was literally somebody, opened up the dam.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, and then it's on. And we've been interested in this stuff forever in some capacity. But for most guys, it's not that interesting.
Yeah.
It's a side. It's not even on their top 10. You know.
Really?
No. I mean, between I got to take care of my dad. I got to mow the yard. God damn. I got to get those. I got to get that catcher's mitt for that kid. And my wife is on my ass for this, and I got to go to work. You know.
Sure.
It's way down there.
Yeah.
It may never cross their mind.
That makes me want to vomit a little bit. It does. It makes me sad.
But here's the key, and I always try to include this in every tweet that I talk about your average guy. He's happy. He's happy. I mean, it's a different wire. Because guys will, like, talk about, like, the difference between alpha and beta. These guys are wired different.
Don't you think that this is more like, what you're talking about is more like gray matter between alpha and beta? It's not.
It's completely different wiring.
Yeah. They can be strong leaders of their household.
Oh, all of it.
They can be, all of the things.
Everything.
It's not a weakened position to be.
No.
In average.
And quite often, that's where a lot of guys get really confused. They're like, well, this guy, he's like 6'4", he's jacked, he owns his own business, he's got a beautiful wife, but he's very much not that interested in anybody other than his wife.
Yeah.
They've been married since she was 18, he was 20.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not on his radar.
Yeah.
It never has been.
So fucking around
or
banging a lot of chicks.
None of that stuff.
Proving his sexual worth.
Nope.
It's not on his radar.
No. And it hasn't ever been, other than he got married. And this is what you do see with a lot of average Joes, and we've talked about this. And this is probably the first time we talked about this, we were talking about how much like guys will game.
Uh-huh.
Well, those guys that game, they'll marry their high school girlfriend.
Yes. Yeah.
They're not
games
interested.
In video games, to be clear.
Yeah. They're doing their video game, and then by the time they're like in their second year of college or not in college, usually, they'll just get married.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it would interfere with your gaming to not have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So.
And she already understands that this is your hobby and this is your pastime.
Yeah.
This is what you want to do. And she's pretty okay with it. And she kind of bitches at you every once in a while. But for the most part, she leaves you alone.
Yeah.
She cooks okay.
A lot of these guys get off work. And they game until they go back to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not unusual. But guys that are really heavily into whatever they're doing, they're not interested in chicks. I mean, it's a side thing if anything at all.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. So when and let's say before we met, before you knew a lot about this stuff going on, when you would talk to a guy or a guy's talking to you, can you tell the difference between whether they're savvy or not savvy?
I think women naturally pick up a lot of indicators of experience from men. I do feel like, and I may have a little bit of a skewed view of that though too, because I feel like I always had a pretty distinct radar. So it's hard for me to say what average girls can pick up on or don't, because I feel like maybe they don't pick up as much as I do.
And that would make sense, the way they're wired.
Yeah. Because maybe number one, because they don't want to pick up, stuff, because they want to bang the alphas, but they know they need to be married to a beta. But at this, all the different things, or the average Joes, so they can't pick it all up, or it would fuck with their brains.
Absolutely.
So I think that it's a little bit of an unfair question to ask me specifically.
Right.
Because I have a little bit
discern.
better. I feel like I have a better discernment, and that I would say goes before you, or before I discovered the Twitterverse of
absolutely
of game and relationships and red pill and things of that nature, because it was already very much on my radar. I was studying relationships and health of years ago.
Right.
Decades ago. So kind of like a lot of you listening, I've been in this a lot longer than Twitter indicates.
And most of these guys you see on Twitter have been doing this stuff a lot longer than you realize.
Yeah.
You know, like Ryan and Rollo and,
yeah.
you know, I mean, this stuff goes back 2 decades, sometimes almost 3 decades.
Right.
You know, at this point.
Right.
So there's a lot of depth and, you know, it's just you don't realize how long they've been doing this stuff at a high level.
It's pretty amazing.
So they know a lot. They've seen a lot. But that's one thing that I've been kind of like, you know, as we go along, is there's a very large mass of guys out there that keep this country and the world moving.
Yes.
And it's a different wiring. They have a different experience, and they experience the world differently than we do, you know. And it's funny because on the whole spectrum of guys in our world, a lot of our guys cannot imagine women not being the most important, most focused thing they've ever seen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or, you know, having a variety. It's interesting.
And I think it's important for you and I to make sure that our listeners know that we have a great deal of respect for that 90% of average Joes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And if I have conveyed anything in this, is that we play our games.
Yeah.
And they play their games. And that's the way I described it years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and because you can't have a bunch of playboys running around because you'd have a bunch of single moms.
Yeah.
And guys that...
Even more than we have already.
And guys that don't show up to work on time. You know, I mean, and guys that are like gone for 3 days. I mean, you have to have guys that are reliable.
Yeah.
And are going to be... They're going to be where they said they'll be for the next decade.
Or,
you know?
or 10 decades.
Yeah,
5 decades.
exactly. I mean,
5 decades.
Your dad is a funny... I mean, he's got a schedule.
Yes.
And he's going to follow that schedule. He's done different jobs. He's been all over the country. But people know exactly what he's going to do.
Absolutely.
He'll tell them, this is where I'm going to be and this is what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's the backbone. Nothing will run. Nothing will work without them.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of allow us to live this lifestyle as debauched as it is at times, you know. Sometimes more.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're like having sex on a Wednesday at 2 in a hotel, and you're like, yeah, we're living a very decadent lifestyle.
Exactly.
You know, or you're riding your bike, you're working out all day, you know, it allows us to do what we do.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, I mean, I've always said, and I in my brain this matches what you're saying, but I've always said that if everyone essentially did what they felt most drawn to do, aside from how much it earns, if earning had nothing to do with your choice of career paths or lifestyle choices, that there would still be garbage collectors, there would still be doctors, there would still be teachers, because we all have natural inclinations that we're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everything would still get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be fascinating to watch if nothing was reliant on actual income.
Yeah. But everything does still get done.
Yeah, everything gets done.
So that's what we wanted to discuss today was...
What do you think the point of this podcast was?
Well, probably because we've been talking about the average Joe a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, if 90% of the country is an average Joe, then certainly some of you guys are here.
A lot of times these guys, especially younger guys, it's hard to imagine being empathetic or sympathetic, you know, put yourself in somebody else's position. And it's not a matter of they don't know or they'd love to like run around on their wife. They're literally wired different.
Yeah.
The urge to run around their wife is not there.
Okay, I will say though that as far as average Joes and their relationship to game, it's still something that average Joes can utilize as a tool to keep kind of control of their wives, their household, their families, even their extended families. It helps things run a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
To know the tools and have these tools in your toolbox to be able to use, you know.
And quite often, I mean, in our world, you know, when a relationship's going kind of like south, or she's starting to wander around, and every once in a while you get these wives that aren't listening to their parents, and they're like, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Well, when he puts in dread into the mix,
yeah,
she gets back in line very quickly. Just like one of the guys related to us, he goes, it shocked me how fast it worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the principles of game still work. They just aren't aware of it.
Right.
Or don't need it. You know, I mean, but when they do need it, it can be applied.
Yeah. I feel like, though, average Joes are probably at the greatest risk for sometimes getting a little bit run over if they don't apply some game.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not all the time, but I feel like they're at the greatest risk for almost getting into more of a beta kind of position.
And you could almost say, like, game is optional, but hypergamy, where women are kind of like unconsciously looking for the best deal, always runs.
Yes.
It's hardwired in them too.
Yeah.
The game is more optional.
That's a good way to look at it.
But that's where we're at. You know, and we'll get back into this, you know, as things come to us, or, you know, people reach out to us over time. You know, we haven't ever had somebody that was like completely what would you say, uninformed about game. Because that's how you come in. Nope, let me put it this way. Who doesn't bother ever falling into our little neighborhood? Guys that are happily married for 20 years.
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years.
Genuinely happily married.
Yeah. Guys that are naturals.
Yeah.
Generally do not.
They wouldn't seek help because they don't need help.
No. Why would you even care about any of this stuff if you're like if you're happy, you bang who you want to bang. You know, you've been married for 20 or 30 years. They don't have, there's no reason for them to be here.
No.
You know? So that's the real deal. Man, every once in a while if something goes, we get guys that have gone through a divorce and they got blindsided.
Or we got guys that are happily married, have a hot little wife, have a great little sex life, love everything in their lives, but are into self-improvement enough to know that you've got to keep your
edge. Yeah. Perfect.
I love it.
They're all over the spectrum.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And we hope you guys got something out of this. You kind of like figure out where you're at, you know, on the level.
Yeah.
You know a lot that most people don't know.
Absolutely. Just being here.
Yeah. Yeah, you're out on the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the whole scheme of things. Well, we hope you guys take something away from this and can apply it.
If you like this, please hit the like button, subscribe. Please share in the comments. We're not the best at responding. We try to be, but we're having trouble keeping up with the comments, which is a wonderful problem to have. But we do actually read them all eventually. And we want to hear your stories, kind of maybe where you feel like you fall on this spectrum, and what the ebbs and flows of your life because of it.
Or how you discovered game.
Yeah.
You know, were you born into it, or, you know, did somebody put it in front of you, or did you stumble on it?
Well, and I feel like a lot of guys maybe had either kind of a Playboy kind of dad or uncle.
Friend of the family.
Had it pretty close by and kind of saw a little bit where game applied to their lives more. Anyway, we want you to win across the board in life, in sex, and in business. Bye!